Are you struggling to stay consistent with exercise? Well, today's podcast will help. I had the pleasure of connecting with Kelly Howard for today's podcast interview. Kelly Howard is the fitness consistency expert with a touch of adventure and the author of Fit, Active and Ageless for Life. For over 25 years, Kelly has helped thousands of women prioritize their fitness so they can feel great and have more fun in the second half of life. She invites women to adventure out of their comfort zones by trying new experiences they may have only dreamt of previously. Her podcast is called Fit is Freedom. She also coaches, has online courses and retreats that have changed the lives of thousands of women. She is the creator of the Fox TV outdoor series, Houston Adventure, and she currently resides in Houston, but she can be found kayaking rivers and traveling trails worldwide. Today on the podcast, Kelly and I talk about multiple things, including how to get started if you aren't currently exercising, and what is going on when we have these start and stop cycles with exercise. We also talk about why having an exercise plan is important, what metrics really matter, and you'll know it's not the scale, and the biggest fitness asset we have at our disposal. I hope you will enjoy this podcast with Kelly Howard. Kelly Howard, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited for our discussion today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for everybody listening. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and my audience has received your introduction. We talked about that you're a fitness expert, and I've mentioned on the podcast a few times that I've had a troubled relationship with exercise. So I'd like to start off with, there's probably people listening to this podcast who maybe they've gotten away from exercise or fitness or whatever the terminology we want to use for that. So let's help those people who are like sitting at home, not really moving, not really getting in a lot of physical fitness, not really exercising. And I want to talk about strategies to help those women. And then I'll throw in after that is strategies where I found myself to be in the camp of starting, stopping.
Okay.
And maybe the strategies are similar, but let's start with someone who they haven't been exercising for months and they're really feeling like they really want to start, but there might be guilt, there might be shame, there might be some emotions getting in the way. What are some things and tips that you, when you work with these kind of clients, to help them to just get started?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I would say that you touched on it already because a lot of times we think that like we have reasons that we don't do it. Like I don't have enough time. I need to take care of everyone else first or whatever it is. A lot of it comes down to a priority, right? When somebody hears me say that, I get the eye roll quite frequently. Yeah, I know it's a priority, but it's not where I've got it right now. So I like to have people look for why do they want to do it? Not because we know we're supposed to. Like supposed to will drive anybody crazy, right? So, if you've got like, well, I know I'm supposed to, people will come to me immediately and they'll say, I know I'm supposed to go to the gym 4 days a week, but I don't want to. I'm like, supposed to? Why go to the gym 4 days a week if you don't want to? That's like, that's a recipe for not wanting and never achieving, right? So I'm always asking people, what would get you excited? If you were in the shape you would like to be in, what would you be able to do that you can't do right now? And when I say get in the shape, that doesn't mean like lose the weight and get perfect and all that stuff. It means get to the body that you want to have to be able to do the life that you want to love. So it could be injuries, could be pain, right? Pain is one of those things that hold a lot of us back. Like I've got a brand new client and she said to me, I had the knee surgery and my knee still hurts. So now what do I do? And I'm like, I get it. So thinking about like, what's holding you back? If you could have what you wanted, what you would do, and then maybe take it one step further and say, if I really could do whatever I wanted to do with this body that I have, change it up a little bit, but if I wanted to do the things that I want to do, what's something that I've always dreamed of doing in life that would be so much fun. That's a driver. That's a pulling someone toward pleasure instead of running from the pain of having to go to the gym, having to lose weight. Like all those halves are so, can I say it, boring? Like they're so boring. And we've been living with them for our whole lives. So why not turn it around and go, what would I be able to do? That's step one. Okay. Step one got a little long, but just think about it. Step one is what would excite you? What would make life really titillating if you could do it? And then step two is what's holding you back really? And when I say what's holding you back really, is it pain and injury? Is it no motivation? Is it really no time? Because if it's really no time, we can find the time. Like we can always find the time for the things that we love. We just have to figure out what that, demotivator is. And then the next step is probably if you haven't been moving in a long time, what I like to have is an MDM, your minimum daily movement. Like what is the smallest thing that you could do today that would give your body a little push? And this is okay. These are starting really, really small. Okay. All of this. But this is, if you haven't been doing anything in a while, then I never, ever, ever suggest to people that they go out, start strong, do a 30-day challenge, whatever it is, because it's not sustainable. We have to find the steps that are going to get us there the long term.
Yeah, I love what you said about finding what makes it fun, right? Because I think a lot of people look at exercise or movement as a have to, or my doctor said, or the guidelines state. It's this outside authority or this outside notion that we feel we need to abide by. And that can feel like an obligation. And sometimes obligations just weigh you down. They don't feel good. They certainly don't feel fun when you have this obligation. But what you're tapping into is like what your inner authority is saying. Why would
Oh,
you want
yeah.
to do it? Why do you want to move? And what would movement bring into your life? What kinds of fun, what kind of joy? And having a body that can sustain and support all the things you want to do with it now and for years to come. So I love that you're tapping into finding that inner authority, finding that inner desire, finding that inner want, because then that won't be such an obligatory statement for somebody else, and that we can truly do and tap into what we truly want for our lives. I love that so much. Now, how about who I have been in the past? I talk about this sometimes on the podcast, a lot with my clients for sure, is this starting and stopping. I would go to the gym, I'd be pretty good. I didn't really say I had a 30-day goal or anything that would get me there. It would be like, it just feels good to get back into it. And I'm not starting and stopping generally on the same week. It's like I start for a period of time and then I guess I don't go for a couple of days. And then that just means to my brain that we stopped. And I would find that that period of time would extend a lot longer than I wanted it to. But there was almost like this resistance that I was having to starting again. Like, it's like, oh gosh, here I have to go again, starting again. And it just felt like, gosh, why start if I know I'm going to stop? Because I've been in these start, stop cycles. So how would you work with somebody or what's some keys that you can help somebody with when they're in that start, stop? And it feels so frustrating because it's not habitualized like I wanted it to be.
It's not perfect, right? You're not.
Exactly.
The fact is that life happens. Okay. Like life happens. There's one of two things that are going on here. Okay. Let's go with the life happens first. And I see this a lot with my clients. They're doing a great job. They're following their program. We put together a schedule and they're rocking and rolling. And then they go travel or someone comes to visit or the holidays happen or whatever, right? Something comes in. And the feeling is that, oh, shoot, you know what? I just stopped again. Will I never get this right? Is it really worth it? Because now I've got to start over from the beginning. And what I tell those clients is actually, you're never starting over from where you started the last time. You have built a foundation, even if it was just a week. Okay. You have built a foundation that now you are better than you were before. Even if it feels like you're starting over from where you were, you're not. Like especially if you start tracking a little bit, you'll notice. So that is the life gets in the way issue. And it does, you know. I have a client who she travels every month. So she travels every month for about a week. So she'll be just like when we first started working together, what was happening was she was rocking and rolling for 3 weeks and then she'd travel. And then she'd come back and instead of starting over immediately, it would take her about a week to get back on track. And here she is feeling like, oh, here I am, back where I was, dropping everything. But the truth is that with just a little bit of tweaking, we were able to make it so that it didn't feel like she was always starting over because she could see where she was starting from a better place. The flip side, and this happens a lot to us, is that the habit piece. So you start, and usually I see this people will go for about 10 days. 10 days is kind of a solid number. Sometimes they'll get 3 weeks, but usually it's about 10 days. And then something happens to disrupt the schedule. And so the schedule gets disrupted. The brain says, oh, okay, well, every time in the past when you started, you ended up not following through. So why are we bothering? It's just that why even bother at this point? So there's this piece about just like beginning to trust yourself that you're going to start over and that everything we do is a series of restarts. Like this is what I do for a living, right? This is what I do. I have lots of fun doing it. And I work out. I'm pretty darn consistent at my workouts. And last week we were traveling. I thought, well, I'll take my resistance bands with me. This will be easy. I'll, figure this out. Oh, did I pick them up? No, I didn't. I did other things, but I didn't do any of my strength. I got back, and even having done this for a million years, my first thought was, well, I don't really have time to start this over on Monday, so I'll just wait till next week. I'll give myself this week. I thought that. I'm like, oh, Kelly, give me a break. Like, right? You wrote the book. And so I said, okay, so what are you going to do differently? It went back to what our original question was. I said, okay, start small. Just start small. All you need to do is 20 minutes. But the trick to that, the fun trick to that is that if you have given yourself 20 minutes to just do your movement, whatever it is, a body in motion stays in motion almost every time, unless you're like completely booked on both sides of your time. So then you've given yourself 20 minutes, maybe you do the walk or whatever it is, you come back like, maybe I'll just knock out another 10 minutes with, weights or resistance or whatever. And you've suddenly gotten yourself into the movement piece and you've gotten yourself exercising again. So all of this though is predicated on having a schedule that works for you. And by that, I mean, going back to that, oh, well, I'm supposed to go to the gym 3 days a week or 4 days a week or whatever it is. If you're not a gym goer, then you have to have a schedule that fits your lifestyle. Whether it's, I don't know, it's different for everybody. And for everybody I work with, I suggest 3 things: that you have some mobility, and mobility is nothing more than warming up the joints, that you have some sort of cardio, and that you have some sort of resistance training. And knowing that if you haven't done resistance training a lot, the resistance to resistance is real. Okay. Like everybody's like, don't want to do it. But just those little pieces, putting them into a schedule will actually bypass so much of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important. What kind of tips do you use, or maybe just for yourself even, when you're like, I don't want to do that thing, the resistance to the resistance, as you were saying? I just thought of one strategy that has been working for me right now is I may not want to do it right now, but darn, that sense of accomplishment when I'm done and, just, grinding out just the reps to do the resistance is sometimes like, I just want to feel that feeling. I can't wait to get there. And it keeps me going, right? It keeps me
Right.
lifting. It keeps me doing the next set and doing the next set. And I just find that if I start thinking about how I'm going to feel afterwards, it makes the present more enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
When we started off this episode about like fun, right? It makes it more enjoyable if like, I know when I get through this last tough set, that I'm just going to be so proud that I did it.
Yes. I love that. I do love that. Other ways of doing it kind of depends on how somebody's wired. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are visual. So, like, one of the things that I suggest is that you have, not only do you have a schedule, you have a schedule written out, and it's the checkoff process.
Yes. We love to
You're
check off.
not allowed to check if you didn't do it, right? That'll drive somebody crazy. It'll drive me crazy. I've been known to go back in to my workout office and go, okay, I've got to do this one last thing because it's on my list and I didn't do it. So, knowing yourself, like you know yourself and you know what's going to get you going and keep you moving, that's a huge piece. It really is. And I love to ask people to just kind of watch themselves and see how they're motivated. Like, what's motivating you? Are you that person who will go in and write something on her to-do list so she can check it off? Well, if you are, then by gosh, having the schedule on the wall to check off is going to be a winner for you. Or are you somebody who can actually tap into those feelings of how you're going to feel after you get this done? Then tap, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to really know yourself.
Yes. Yes. And what do you think about what would be some helpful advice for someone who maybe wants to go to the gym, but they're intimidated, right? There's a lot of machinery. There's maybe people that have been going to the gym and they walk around with this level of confidence, and that could be intimidating to somebody new, or just the workout space, right? How do you like get in on a machine if somebody's already there, or there's a lot of men around and women come into this space, and that could be intimidating as well. Any strategies to help somebody as they navigate like a new space, saying they want to go to the gym and they want to start being, accountable in that way. And it feels good to work out around amongst others too. Anything you would share with the listeners on that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lots of gym etiquette there. So one of them is if you haven't been going to that gym a lot, right? If I was going to go to a new gym, hadn't really been before, I would go at an off time, a not busy time. That's what I mean by off time. Something that's just like, I don't know, 2 PM. And I'd put it in my schedule. Because when you go to a busy gym at 5 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning or whatever it is, the energy is different. And if you're brand new, you're going to be like overly intimidated. I would be overly intimidated in a gym if I hadn't been before. And I show up at 5:30 in the afternoon. Boom. So off hours, get somebody there to walk you through all the machines and all the weights and show you where everything is so you feel confident. Because if you just wander in, I've done it 100 times, 100 different gyms. You just wander in and you're like, oh, I think I'll get on this machine for a minute. I'll try that one. Right? No, get somebody to walk you through. Take this with a grain of salt, but I will say it. A lot of gyms will offer a personal trainer for your first go round. Make sure that personal trainer understands your body and your goals, because I've had too many of my women who maybe they haven't been to the gym in a long time. They're in their mid-50s. They've had some joint issues. They go to a gym. They get this super awesome young guy who is used to throwing around big weights, and he gets them off on the wrong foot. Not because he's not a great trainer, but because he's got a completely different body, right? Like you can get away with stuff back at that age and that size than you can at another age. So start with those things. Go in with a goal. Like today is, lower body. Today is abs or whatever it is. Go in with a goal and do not just sit on the machines. This is probably like, I see this happening to a lot of people, is that they'll sit down on a machine, they'll finish their set, and then they'll look at their phone or something like that, waiting for the next set. Don't do that. Like get up, move around, do some mobility, come back. If somebody else is sitting on the machine, and you need that machine, you can very nicely just say, can I work in with you? And that's a hard thing to do if you're not used to doing it. But otherwise, you've got somebody in your way for 15 minutes sitting there looking at their phone until their next set. So
Mhm.
don't feel bad because that's good gym etiquette. Once you feel comfortable with the gym, then the other thing that'll happen is if you start going at a consistent time, you are going to not meet friends necessarily, but you're going to have those nod buddies, the ones you come in and you kind of nod at. And that increases confidence. That just makes you feel like, hey, yeah, I belong. So give yourself a little bit of time. Really, I mean, a new gym could take a month to get used to, honestly. But
Mhm.
but give yourself all the wins of making it simple for you.
Yeah. I noticed over the weekend I went in and I was watching a lot of the males around me. I was in the weightlifting area and they were doing much bigger weights. And I was noticing that, there were a few women, not as many as the men. We were definitely outnumbered at that time. But I noticed a lot of the men were like grunting and squinting. And I'm like looking at us women and we're not doing that. And I'm like, wait, maybe I should be pushing it more. Maybe I should be going and squinting and grunting. So I picked up a heavier weight and I decided that I'm going to grunt and do the thing. And I have to say I really pushed myself. My muscles definitely felt it for 2 days later, but I was like, "Wow, yes, I could grunt and squint as well." I didn't know why that was never an option that my brain thought was available to me.
That's funny. That's funny. I love that. Yeah, I do love that.
Like equalizing the playing field in my head somehow.
It is. It is because you're right. When I'm taking a group on like a retreat and we're on a big hike, I have what I call my lions and my antelopes. And it's the same kind of thing, right? Like the lions are the ones that are, steady and going strong and, doing the grunting, and the antelopes are the ones that are just kind of going along, checking it out. And that's kind of what you're describing happening at the gym too. And I
Yeah,
know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. All right, I'm stepping into my inner lion then. I now have a
There you
name
go.
and a way to think about it visually, and I'm
Yeah.
a visual person, so that works out great.
Roar.
So, Kelly, let's transition and talk about any like misconceptions or myths do you find when it comes to women working out and improving their fitness level?
Yeah, probably the first one is that it has to be perfect. That goes back to one of your questions before, which is that is one of those things that stop us, is that when we think that we're not getting it exactly right, we just stop because it's kind of a why bother. But perfectionism is probably one of the biggest fitness consistency killers. Is if we think that we're just not doing it perfect, then why even bother doing it?
Yeah. Before you
I
go on,
would,
I just want to
yeah,
mention something that's been helpful because I just don't want to forget it. That's been helping to my perfectionistic brain is that I've been doing this concept that I learned about exercise snacks, right? Where you can just do a short burst of exercise. Like for me, it could be between client calls or maybe I'll do one right before I start recording a podcast just to get my energy up. But this concept of exercise snacks, because if I don't make it to the gym, I can still do like a couple of minutes of exercise snacking. And that makes
right.
me feel like the identity of I'm still somebody caring about my fitness. I'm still working in my exercise, even though it didn't look according to my perfect plan I had put out for the week. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that concept of exercise snacks helps me with my perfectionistic brain around fitness.
I think that's brilliant. I do. I love it. And you brought in the idea of, having that exercise plan, which, I'm big on. And I tell my people all the time. So you schedule your workouts for the week, and that's your cardio, your mobility, and your fit. And then if you hit 80% of it, you're doing great. If you hit 90%, you're like, whoa, seriously. And if you hit 100%, you're probably not trying hard enough. So there is that little piece that, where are you hitting it on that schedule? I do the same thing. I judge myself or track myself, really. I do that. And that's the next piece, is that a lot of people don't like tracking. We may like to check things off, but I get so much resistance to tracking. And if you are willing to start tracking what you're doing, and when I say tracking, it's a little bit more than, checking off the fact that you went for a walk. It's you walked for 30 minutes and, you were at a perceived effort of 4 and, you did your mobility beforehand. So starting to look at things like that will allow you to broaden what you're doing for your fitness. And the myth comes in where tracking is only weight. Forget the scale. Like if you can forget the scale is like a capricious demigod that no one needs around, right? If you can step off the scale and maybe have something different to track, you're writing it down, but you're also like, one of my favorite things is to have clothing trackers. And a clothing tracker is a piece of clothing that, maybe fits you when you wanted to look that certain way, but it doesn't fit as well now. So you hang it up on your door, you check in once a month and try it on. I had a client just recently and she said to me, one of her goals was weight loss. It was a big deal. And she had lost, first 3 months, she'd lost quite a bit of weight. And then this last month, she hadn't lost any. And she was like, I'm just doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong. And I said, no, I don't think you are, because you're doing everything that we've written out. And I said, did you try your clothing tracking? And he's like, deer in the headlights. No, I completely forgot about that. I said, I'm going to sit here on this call and wait for you. You go try this pair of pants on and you come back. And she comes back and she's like, I'm wearing them. Right. So what had happened was her muscle had caught up with the, decrease in weight fat. And so now she's really, still losing weight, but her muscle is now gaining. So that's another one, that the tracking using a scale. So those are some of the ones that I really like to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's great. Any other myths?
A myth, I guess tracking wasn't really a myth, but the myth of tracking is that you need to use the scale. Forget that. But another myth that comes up is that it's too late to learn to do this, or it's too late to follow that dream of doing that, whatever. And I have so many examples in my world of women, whatever the age, who had said to me, I don't think I can do that thing I always wanted to do. It's a little too late, who are now doing it, rocking and rolling. I was holding actually an in-person event where we were going for a hike. She showed up, and when she got out of her car, she had a cane. And they'll come with the hiking sticks, right? But nobody's ever shown up with a cane before. And I was like, oh, okay, what's going on? And she said, well, I'm not really going on this hike with you. I just wanted to prove to myself that I would get here. And maybe in a few months, I'll come back. Right now, my knee, I'm still trying to lose weight and, all the things. And she obviously didn't know me, because I'm like, oh no, you're here. Let's go. So everybody helped her because, she had a little difficulty getting up and down the hills and such. But in the end, she was so excited and so exhilarated. And we had just like totally busted the myth of the fact that she couldn't do it, right? And that same woman is now sending me postcards from places that she's hiking around the country. She eventually quit working that she had done. She's out there and she's going to all these different trails all over the country and she's hiking them. And her original thought was that she just couldn't do it.
Yeah. I love how she showed up for herself anyway. And it was like you were the teacher that she needed at that moment.
Yeah, we needed each other because she made my world that day.
Yeah. Beautiful. So I want to transition to, what do you think is one of the biggest assets that we need when it comes to working on our fitness?
Well, and we've touched on this a few times already, but our biggest fitness asset is our brain. It really is. Fitness starts in your head, not your feet. And when we understand that and we get the brain on board, then it gets so much easier. So it really is. I think our greatest fitness asset is our brain. The next one is, I like having a community. Like having a community, and community looks different for everybody. Like community could simply be for that person who hasn't been to the gym in a while, and she starts going back and she starts nodding at people in the morning, right? That is a form of community. You may not think it is because you're not doing a lot of interaction and chatting, but you know that, oh, George recognized that I came in again. You give each other a wave, Sue's over there or whatever their names are. And you've created a community without even them knowing that you're part of the community. Accountability is another asset if you have the right accountability. The wrong accountability doesn't do you any good.
And how would you define wrong versus right?
Oh, yeah. So I have what I call my big bad three. So my big bad three of accountability are, one of them is your best friend. Your best friend's job is not to tell you to go out and exercise. Her job is to say, oh my gosh, did you really have that bad a day? Let's go get a glass of wine, or let's go to the movies, or let's go out to dinner, or whatever it is, right? That's her job. Her job is to, love and care for you, not to tell you to get back end out the door and go do it. The next one is your life partner. They know all the triggers. They know that if they don't really want you to leave and go exercise or go to the gym or whatever, they know how to suggest to grab the pizza, get the Netflix. I mean, they're good at that. And the last one really is a fitness app. Fitness apps are a tool. They are not an accountability. And people will say to me, but I stay accountable with my fitness app. And I say, no, you track with your fitness app, but you can just turn that fitness app off if you don't really feel like listening to it. A real accountability is when you have, I love layered accountability. In the end, we want to be 100% accountable to ourselves. That's the top of a pyramid, 100% accountable to ourselves. But to get there, maybe we sign up for classes. Maybe that's one piece of the pyramid. Maybe we have a fitness tracker, which is fine, but don't plan on it being your sole requirement. Maybe we have a coach. Maybe we sign up for a trip or a run or whatever it is. But you add all these little different pieces that keep you basically on the straight and narrow, because you know that you've either scheduled it, paid for it, you're looking forward to it. All of those are accountability. Within my group, we have accountability groups through WhatsApp. And one of them is Accountability on Fire. These are my people who are like, I want to be checked in on every day. I'm on fire on this one. And then I've got, Accountability Light, where we're like, well, you know what? I just want to let you know what's going on once a week and I'm fine. So that's another kind of accountability. But using that to your advantage, all the while, reaching for that top, the precipice, where you're 100% as much as you can be accountable to yourself.
Wow. I even love how you structure your coaching differently based on the needs of the client. I think that's very key in meeting them where they are, and being willing to honor where they're at and being their guide on that journey. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, Kelly, well, tell my audience where all the good stuff is, where they can find you if they want to work with you or learn more about you.
Oh, yeah. So the easiest place is just my website. It's fitasfreedom.com. You can find all the, social and links and the book and everything else there. And I think actually, we didn't mention this beforehand, but I think there's a link for you in the show notes where anybody listening can get a free electronic copy of the book also, if they would like that. And either which way, fitasfreedom.com. And thank you for having me.
Yes, great. We will make sure that link is in the show notes for the audience to download that book. And thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your wisdom with us, Kelly.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody listening.